I'm still feeling a little bit under the weather, but here we are again. We're going to be talking about the new Siege mechanics, or new-ish. It's been around in the game for a few months here now, and I will admit this content is certainly growing on me, to say the least. My particular clan is in tier 6, which certainly does help out a little bit. We're obviously getting very good gear from these battles, as well as, of course, good amounts of fragments for the Tiramisu champion that they've introduced. Not her actual name, but that's what I'm going to call her. So, Siege is becoming one of my favorite pieces of content because it introduced something new to the game with rewards that are actually worth it. If you're unfamiliar with Siege or why you might want to fight for it, let's go ahead and take a look at the set first of all. So Feral set is a 9-piece set where the full 9-piece is going to make allies deal 5% more damage per each debuff placed by the wearer. So if you have a champion that's bringing in 2 or 3 debuffs for the enemy team, that's going to boost your damage by 10 to 15%, which is pretty incredible. 1 piece will give you plus 40 accuracy, and 2 pieces will give you an additional 5% speed on top. For those of you that are familiar, that's probably immediately popping out as a same stat bonus as the perception set that you can actually craft, and the bonus, of course, is you can get that from rings, amulets, or of course banners. So this particular gear set is quickly becoming very high value. So that being said, one of the things and one of the downsides to this is in the Siege battles, you need auras that specifically say all battles with them. So your Wukongs, your Arbiters, and champions like that are not going to work in this game mode, unfortunately, because they are arena specific. So essentially, the aura has to expressly say all battles or Siege battles specifically. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I don't believe there's any Siege only auras in the game quite yet, although they have confirmed that all battles auras do work. So that's essentially the long-winded way to say that today we are talking about the top 10 all battles auras that you can use in your Siege fights, or the top 10 auras essentially to be used in those Siege fights. Let's go ahead. Let's hop into it. We're going to have a few champions here. So we do, of course, have some mythicals. We have legendaries. We have a couple of epics. And we actually have a rare on this list as well. These are not necessarily the best in slot champions. These are essentially just going to be champions that you can bring that might help you get that edge on the enemy inside the Siege battles. And with that in consideration, I'm not just picking any old champion that has a speed in all battles aura. I'm picking a champion that's actually going to be useful inside an arena-based fight like this would be. Let's go ahead and hop into it here first of all with the Sacred Order, and we're going to be taking a look at Cardiel. Cardiel has a heal on the A1, he has a revive on death, a cleanse, and a block debuffs on the A2 on a 3-turn cooldown, and the revive on death cannot be removed. And then he does also have an increased crit rate and crit damage and ally attack on his A3, which is absolutely fantastic. He does also have the passive, where allies are going to receive 20% less damage from champions from the Demon Spawn, Undead Hordes, or Night Revenant factions. And there are, of course, some very, very strong nukers inside those factions, so if you find yourself going against them inside Siege, this is going to be a perfect counter. And he does have an ally speed in all battles by 19% aura, so of course he is going to work for our purposes as well. Cardiel is a fantastic pick. Next up is a fairly well-known champion, especially if you frequent the realms of the arena, and that is going to be Arbaeus the Stonethorn. Arbaeus is a mythical from the Sylvan Watchers faction. She has an ally speed in all battles by 25%, which is going to be pretty much the strongest aura that we're talking about here today. This is an absolutely fantastic aura. She is terrifying to go against, especially if you're facing somebody that has an awakening for her, especially if it's a 5 or a 6 star. She's also one of the few champions that can actually place a stone skin as well. So she can place a stone skin on herself, as well as a taunt, which basically means that she's going to be eating up all those hits from your champions, or if you're using her, she's of course going to be eating up all the hits from the enemy team, which is pretty cool. And of course she does bring that aura to help the rest of your team go faster, so especially if you already have awakenings and such for her, I probably don't need to tell you what a beast of a champion she is, but you're definitely going to get use out of her inside the Siege battles. We have kind of a classic combination champion with Arbiter, and that's going to be Lysandra. Lysandra has a speed in all battles by 24%. She also has a turn meter increase, decrease, and an increased speed on all allies, which is pretty fantastic. And she has a full turn meter depletion on the A2 as well. I say that she's kind of a combination champion with Arbiter because essentially the teams that you would see in classical arena would have been like an Arbiter, a a Lissandra, a Madame Saracen, and like a Trunda or something like that, and that was essentially the meta for quite a significant amount of time. Now, Lissandra is an OG champion, which means that a lot of players are probably going to have her. You'll probably have some awakenings for her by now. And of course, she does have that 110 base speed as well, which is absolutely terrifying. You can easily get the speed meta, or you can easily win the speed race, rather. I can't really talk today. The head cold is working wonders. Next champion we're talking about actually is one of my favorites, and it is Marichka. If you're lucky enough to have her, you are probably using her inside the siege battles. I know that I certainly am. She has an ally attack on the A1, which if you have Taurus, it's always going to be him. She has a full cleanse, as well as a turn meter fill. And then she also has a heal, a shield, and a strengthen, which is absolutely fantastic. She has very solid base stats with good HP, good speed, good defense. And most importantly, she does also have the ally speed in all battles by 24%. Absolutely fantastic champion. If you have her, certainly do not hesitate to run her inside the siege mode. You're going to win a lot of speed races because of it. I do actually use her inside live arena quite frequently as well. She's very good at countering like a Gizmak, for example, any of your bomb champions. So you know, the fusions that we had that do it. So Gaius, and then I can't remember the Rat King, Nishak, there we go. She'll perfectly counter them as well because of her passive, which places a block damage whenever an ally receives a bomb, poison, or HP burn. Of course, the other part of her passive is that she revives everybody with 50% HP and 75% turn meter. So if you pair her with another reviver, specifically a champion that we're going to be talking about a little bit further down the list, she can be absolutely fantastic. Next champion, though, is going to be another OG champion. This one is an epic, though, so this is Deacon Armstrong. Deacon has an ally speed in all battles by 19% aura. He does also have a turn meter fill, as well as a turn meter decrease and an extra turn on the A3, and then he has an AoE decrease defense on the A2. So this guy is absolutely fantastic. He can cycle through his turns incredibly quick. With the A3 alone, he's kind of something like a very small version of Lissandra. He does have very decent base stats as well with 100 base speed, so you can build him out pretty speedy. I did actually use him quite significantly inside Classic Arena as well before I had any other speed boosters or anything like that, kind of when I was on my path to Arbiter. So the fact that he can bring the speed aura makes him very strong. And then, so one of the things to consider as well is your blessings, of course, right? So obviously, if you're running a legendary champion, you're going to have intimidating presence as the blessing. However, if you're running an epic champion, you're actually going to go with commanding presence. So there is still options for epic champions. It's not going to be quite as strong. It will still increase your aura by 35%. But you don't get the decrease of the enemy aura by 20% like you do with Intimidating Presence. So it's not quite as strong, and they do not stack, so don't think that you can cheese it there. But you certainly do still have options if you're running epic champions. We're going to talk about a former fusion here. This is going to be Yoshi the Drunkard, a champion that I was not too happy with when I first came out, but I certainly do see some use cases for him here now. So decent base speed, 103. Decent base HP. He has an ally speed in all battles by 19%, which is kind of just the default all battle speed aura if you're not getting something bigger, right? So he also has an increased attack and increased accuracy on your entire team. Then he also has a True Fear, as well as increased chance of the True Fear on enemies under increased attack. So he's perfect for cutting in against, say, for example, an Arbiter team, especially when you consider his passive, which fills his turn meter by 4% each time an enemy receives a buff. This guy is absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend using him if you have him, and especially if you need the aura, of course. Next up is another former fusion. This is going to be Ancora. Ancora, of course, does have, once again, that ally speed in all battles by 19%, but she's also a fantastic combination with somebody like a Marichka. The reason being is her revive is going to reset the cooldown of the revived ally's skills. So, for example, if your team gets AoE'd and wiped, Marichka is going to revive you. Then Ancora can come in and revive the Marichka. You get the skills reset. Marichka can then come in and heal. She can shield and strengthen and all those sorts of good things. And then, of course, if you did refinance or remortgage your house and got yourself King Narcissus as well, he can absolutely smack people. He's one of the best HP nukers that we have inside the game currently. Debatably the best HP nuker. It's really just him and Taurus that are fighting for it. There is also the mythical bomb champion now, but I think he's a little bit more niche, especially with polymorph and whatnot being introduced. We then have a rare next, actually, which, don't get me wrong on this rare is definitely not going to be end game viable, but if you're a tier 1 clan and you're really just struggling to have some sort of a speed aura for your team, you could actually take a look at Spirit Host. So Spirit Host does have pretty good reviews. I do believe she is actually campaign farmable as well. She has an ally speed in all battles by 10% with a 103 base speed. She does also bring an increased attack on for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. And then she does actually cleanse everybody, as well as place a block debuffs on all allies for 1 turn as well. So if you get CC'd or something like that, she can essentially come in and cleanse. If you're going against, say, for example, like a Torment or a Hegemon, right? Building her out in maybe like a Stone Skin or an immunity set can certainly help. And then, of course, having that speed aura is certainly going to help your team out a little bit as well. We're on next to another Bannerlord champion here, actually, which is going to be Minaya. Minaya is a fairly decent champion now after her rework, actually. So fantastic base stats, almost 22k base HP. 1150 almost defense, and then 111 base speed. Ally speed in all battles by 19%. She brings a continuous heal on the A1. She brings a heal on the A2 as well as a heal reduction, so she's going to have use somewhere like, for example, Amius and those sorts of things. She shows up in some of the rotations. And then she has a heal by 40% of their max HP as well as a block debuffs. If somebody's fully healed, it's going to place a shield on them for 2 turns equal to 25% of the champion's HP, and that's on a 4-turn cooldown. And she does also have the passive where she's going to fill everybody's turn meter and heal them by 20% of her max HP when she's killed. So she is pretty awesome, right? She's going to help to keep your team nice and topped up, and especially if you're bringing an HP-based nuker who is not a Taurus, that's going to be something that is super important. And lastly, we have one final champion to talk about here, which is actually going to be inside the Barbarian faction, and that is High Khatun. High Khatun has, once again, that ally speed in all battles by 19%, 104 base speed, which is very good for an epic. She has a turn meter decrease on the A3, turn meter fill, as well as an increased speed on the A2. And of course, the best part about her is everybody's going to get her fairly early on in the game. So if you're needing that speed booster to help progress your account, she can really fill that role for you. And she does still show up in some late game content. So there's certain Doom Tower teams that can use her. For example, you could use her inside Dark Fae or something like that. And she does also, of course, show up inside some City of Centranos content too. So you can rest assured that spending your resources on her is not a waste of time or a waste of your investment. That being said, I hope this guide was helpful for you guys. If you have any other suggestions or anything you're curious about inside the game, make sure to leave a comment down below. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.